The other thing I would say is it's not that you shouldn't listen to other people or you shouldn't take advice, but you should always be checking in with yourself, with your own heart, your own mind, your own body, about what really feels right for you.
Today we're talking to Alison Bale. We loved talking to Alison because her life really has been an adventure, taking her to far-flung places where it wasn't just a quick visit, it was many, many years spent there before coming back to the UK. All of the subtle changes and choices in her life have all led up to this amazing goal right now of wanting to leave the world a better place. If you want to find out more about Alison, you can in the description below. And please do, subscribe to this channel, get involved in the comments, let us know what you're thinking, what your goals are, what you're trying to achieve, because we would absolutely blimmin' love to know. Take it easy and please do enjoy this episode. Welcome back, everyone. I'm going to be honest, this is one of my most anticipated because I met Alison a while back for a chat and she shared some parts of her life and her adventure with me that got me very excited. So no pressure, Alison, but we have to start at the beginning. And the beginning always is, what are you trying to achieve, Alison? What is it you want to achieve, whether it's business, personal, or just life as we know it? What are you trying to achieve?
There's probably two ways of answering that. I would like to leave the world a better place than I found it. From a business perspective, I want to change the conversation about chronic pain, about what causes it and how you manage it. And I want to help people have skills that they can use to help themselves. And from a personal perspective, I want to be working as much as I want to work, but in a way that's right for me and that fits with who I am as a person and where my life is more broadly. And where I guess I have this idea that my life and my work kind of dovetail a bit together. So rather than there being a need for some sort of work-life balance, you've just more got an integrated whole that works for me.
The integrated conversation seems to be a running theme at the moment with many of the members within the digital circus, and it's something that we've always kind of tried to talk about, is the fact that work-life balance is really tricky because there's always something that has to give on that balance.
Well, yeah, it suggests they're working against each other. Whereas
we talk about blends quite a lot, and how actually that integrated life is so important, because for many of us at this stage, and so you've had multiple careers over the years. At this stage right now, it's something that you're passionate about, and you're clear, even in that opening statement there, it's something that you have a fire in your belly for. So why would you separate that out from your life? It's very much who you are, what you do.
I'm switching the fire in my belly off now because I'm going to watch TV. It's like, what's that about? I've got a question, Alison, if that's all right. Where's the kind of, because I know a little bit about your past kind of careers and that, where's the kind of chronic pain, wanting to kind of leave the world a better place around that? Where's that come from? Where's that start?
I do like to make a difference. Right from when I was in the corporate world, one of the reasons I got a little frustrated with the work I was doing as a communication consultant was that it never really seemed as if I was actually making that big a difference to the problems I was being asked to consult on. And one of the reasons I trained to be a chiropractor is because as a chiropractor, because you're working with people one-to-one, you generally can make a difference. So that's part of where it comes from. And the mindfulness came up in part from my own experience of managing my life. Because I worked as a chiropractor, most of what you see as a chiropractor is chronic pain. You don't very often see the people who go, I was fine and then I fell off a motorbike yesterday, because they go to hospital or to their doctor. So the people who come to me had usually been in pain for a long time, and there wasn't always an obvious reason why. And what I began to appreciate through working with people as a chiropractor is that as great as the physical intervention is, And I'd never say to anybody, don't see a chiropractor or don't see an osteopath because they work. Ultimately, everything that the research is showing us and everything that my experience is showing me is that for people to have a reasonable chance of a good long-term recovery, they need an active intervention. And active means it's got to be something that you participate in and that you can do for yourself. And so wonderful as chiropractic is always a passive intervention. Somebody comes to me and they lie on a bench and things are done to them. With mindfulness, you're moving much more into the area of let's look at a skill set that somebody can learn that they can then apply to help themselves. Something that's going to give them help over the long term. Because once you've learnt the skills, you don't lose them. And you're not reliant on always being able to get in front of your favourite therapist to get some help. What I guess I'd add on to that is just, yeah, sorry.
No, you carry on, please carry on.
That this whole notion that there's far more, it's a common belief about particularly back pain and neck pain that the whole problem is because there's something out of place. And what we now know is that isn't actually the case very often. In fact, with a lot of back and neck problems, there isn't actually a diagnosis we can really find very easily. The whole way we talk to ourselves, our background, our beliefs, our education, everything about who we are as a person matters in terms of how much pain we're going to have, what and when. And mindfulness gives you a skill set to kind of step back a little bit from your habitual habits, thinking and patterns and start getting curious about what's going on for you.
I'm curious, Alison, because you're quite a unique breed, and I say that with love, in terms of coming from a chiropractic background where that is very black and white fact. You're dealing.
Let's snap that back.
Let's snap that. That's I can manipulate that. I can do this, and I'm going to fix your problem. So moving into that more mindfulness space, that's almost the yin and the yang, isn't it? There's very not polar opposites to each other, but you are not every.
See, I saw it as a natural progression. That's interesting. I can see a little bit of both now you've said that.
In terms of
depends how you view
reimagining. I say reimagining, and absolutely, and that's a very subjective thing. They're right there. But in terms of shifting to a more mindful way of supporting your patients, did you find that was a natural shift? Were your clients on board, or did you have to go out and find a whole new way of working in terms of the people that you were able to support with that more mindful approach to your treatments?
It's been a mix of both, because I've always thought in a broader sense. I mean, I trained at a college that very much regards chiropractic as an art, a science and a philosophy. And I've actually always been guided by the science. And actually science supports the need to look at pain as a biological, a psychological and a social issue. The science well supports the fact that you've got to look broader and deeper than tissue damage or tissue changes. And in fairness, a lot of clients as a chiropractor who got on well with me because I did think broader, because I did think wider. So for some of them, there was a natural progression. But then
I think that goes back. Sorry.
Well, I mean, the other side of that is I've lived in India for 15 years. So in a sense, because I'm now back in the UK, I'm finding a new audience anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've very simply just slid into that. I lived in India.
Well, hold on. We got to stop before we start on India. We need to go back to you left your corporate world job. That was the one I've been dying to revisit, because I can see the link from that to this. So in a corporate environment, you're not working with the individuals. You're working in a kind of mass thing. So you'd clearly decided at that point that actually I was going to say too broad, but not too broad at all. people, but that was not impactful enough. Ultimately that business may have been supporting people, but your impact on that wider impact was kind of not as tangible. So you had to quit that to go on this kind of one-on-one journey. But yeah, that kind of desire to be the broader, not desire, that kind of built-in broader approach has always been there. I can see that actually massively.
Oh, answer a question for her.
Yeah. What's that?
Yeah.
No, was that the question? I thought that was just my thoughts, Emily. Sorry.
Also, when I look back, and I think this is a bit of a life lesson, what happened with the corporate job is some changes were made, which basically moved me. I joined a job where I was commuting for half an hour by car and got shifted to a different office, which meant I was commuting for about 4 hours a day. And along with a whole bunch of other things that I didn't like, it made me sufficiently uncomfortable that I actually asked myself, well, okay, Alison, what do you want? And actually, to be frank, the chiropractic came out of left field because I'm a horse rider, and I came across an article for chiropractic on horses, and I thought, wow, a job with horses that pays reasonable money, that sounds like me. And I looked into it, and it was weird. It was like everything I'd done in my life had been about being on the road to being there. And then eventually it just became a question of quite literally a bit of a leap of faith, to be honest, because I couldn't stay in a full-time job in London and train to be a chiropractor. So it became a kind of, I just reached a point where I'd got to try and find a way to take that kind of leap of faith. So I did. Went freelance, trained to be a chiropractor.
So how did you practically manage that? Because that's, again, another big shift that a lot of us who are listening and watching right now might appreciate. It's that retraining, that stop and reset and change the direction in which you're going to take your life. How did you find that stopping from a corporate London job to going, actually, I'm going back into educational mode now. I need to start learning and practically supporting yourself financially at that point as well. How did you find that?
Looking back on it, I kind of almost wonder how I did it myself. I had the best part of 9 months between deciding to apply to train and actually reaching a point of making a decision to hand my notice in. The first thing I did, this is going to sound a bit strange, but I carried a little book round with me that had a poem in it. Well, not really a poem, but it just said, wherever there is forward movement, there is always turbulence. And I used that as my touchstone all year to keep reminding myself that every time I panicked, every time I felt anxious, every time I worried, this was normal. It was absolutely to be expected because I was trying to do something new, and therefore that was okay. But the other big life lesson is that having actually made the commitment to do it and having told a few people that I'd worked with, I worked with in a previous job, not in the one I was in now, all of a sudden, 2 people who'd moved somewhere else came back into my life and said, if you're going to do freelance, come and work with me. And it was almost as though having made the commitment, this is the other thing. Years ago, a friend gave me a quote about making commitments. It's from somebody who led an Everest expedition. But essentially it says that once you commit, the universe moves underneath you. It moves to support you. And somehow things that you couldn't have envisaged happening come walking to your door. And that's what happened.
I believe in that, and we have different thoughts between the two of us in terms of the universe, and I say manifest.
Well, that makes me out as a naysayer in this, but I'm not a naysayer at all.
You're not a naysayer, but I think what you described there is complete object focus though as well. And when you open yourself up to change a little bit and you can see other things happening, those opportunities are always there. However, you're ready to see them and ready to know that there are people around us, and we are all blessed with people around us who at different points of our life will turn up and disappear again, but could, again, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the line still be that little ray of sunshine that we all need in our life. And
yeah, when I was younger, I used to have a massive kind of issue with the coming and going of people. I couldn't get my head round. Bear in mind, this is the pre-internet years as well. I couldn't get my head round how you would meet someone for a short period of time, like a weekend, because we used to go away a lot with camping, with scouts and stuff. And you'd have an amazing time with them and then never see them again. And I really couldn't get my head round that. But as I kind of get older, and I guess the internet's helped a little bit, you sort of understand that these are just things that happen, all these little experiences, they're all part of that journey and that adventure. And if I'm honest, this is kind of a segue, but same thing. One of the things I do like about the modern world is you can then keep in touch with people, because pen pal writing was not my thing. That's your thing. Yeah. So hold on, right. So you've quit your corporate job, you've stayed on track. I like the touchstone thing. I mean, I've had my own versions of that over the years. And then, you're down this route. Let's cut to it. What then takes you to, you've left London, you've started this, you're now up sticks, you're off to Goa. What talk us through that, please, Alison.
Oh God, there's so many different versions of this story.
Well, give us the most rock and roll, extravagant, extreme one, please.
Okay, the most rock and roll is that my husband and I fancied an adventure, and we kind of knew that if we didn't do it, we'd be sat in the UK in 20 years' time saying, I wish we had. And we didn't want to think like that. We didn't want to leave that regret sitting on the table. We were thinking of moving house anyway. And we thought, well, we'll go for 6 months. And if it doesn't work out, we'll just come back to the UK and we'll move. And we did actually, the more prosaic version of it is that we actually had a business investment there that got into a bit of a mess. And we realised it wasn't going to get sorted out if we didn't go and live there. So that was kind of the added excuse. But we basically went for an adventure. It was the right time in our lives. The business took 5 years to sort out. And we could have come back at that point, but life was good and the chiropractic business was growing and we were having fun. And so we stayed. And we half thought about coming back in another 5 years. So that was kind of 5 years ago, after 10 years. But I didn't feel ready. And this is a hard one to describe. I just think when you know. But we did always also intend to come back at some point. We used to say that there'll be a time when India's done with us and India will let us know. So it's all been a bit of just following.
You're saying... Yeah, no, I get that, the following thing. So it's interesting that you're kind of saying, when you know. I think there's another version of the same thing, which is it happens when it happens. Right. Yeah. So, Emily and I are big believers in this. Over the past decade, we've had probably more business ideas than, we literally should have written every business conversation idea we've ever had down in a book and like flogged it as business ideas, small business couples, business ideas. But the ones that have stuck are the ones that have just happened. They've not been overthought. They've actually just naturally and organically happened. Like Yellow Tuxedo is a prime example of that, isn't it? It just happened. So,
thanks to COVID.
Not just that. No, it started before COVID, and you know that. Yeah. So, yeah.
So, you're back in the UK.
Yeah.
Has that been an adjustment for you, Alison?
Not as big as an adjustment as I thought it might be. I'm actually really, okay. It feels right. It is right. It's okay. I mean, I still have kind of a half a foot, as it were, back in Goa. So I don't know what's going to happen this winter. I mean, maybe you should ask me that question again when I've done a winter. Okay, because I came back in March, so I've really only had to do lighter days and better weather. Ask me again, okay? In January, February next year.
Right, we can predict.
Yeah.
Right. We
always laugh because Alan's sister, now back in the UK, lived in Dubai for many, many, many years. And Alan's brother lives in Australia on the Sunshine Coast. And we laugh that both times that they come home periodically, January, your sister
Well,
moved
Paula,
back.
when Paula left Dubai, and hello, Paula, and came back to the UK, she came back at Christmas, which was then quickly preceded, followed by January. And I'm like, Paula, do you understand? Like, as someone who lives in England, that is literally the most miserable time in the year. Everyone can deal with November and December because of Christmas. January, February to March are pretty much horrific. Is there any other word of describing them? They are horrific, and I just don't get people who come home in the winter. Why
Alison,
would you?
please stay.
Yeah. Well, no.
Well,
please go if that's the right thing. So
part of the reason for doing the mindfulness, which it's a happy coincidence, is that unlike chiropractic, I can deliver mindfulness online. So I do have this kind of a idea up in the side of my vision of I could still go abroad for probably kind of November to the end of February, something like that. We'll see.
That's incredible.
If you don't mind me sharing, and this is relevant to what you're saying. So Emily and I, after a life of being employed and then running a business that was very geographically centered, and we had stock and equipment, it was only a couple of years ago where we realized we'd become, what's called digital nomads, and we literally could work from anywhere in the world. About a week later, after being very excited that we'd become digital nomads, we realized that our children were in school. So therefore, any ideas of digital nomadicness are parked for about 10 years. So we are in this world that you're talking about, and we can't do anything about it.
Well, we can, but
we can.
not to.
Yeah, we're choosing not to. Yeah.
But isn't that fabulous, Alison? In the fact that, and this is a conversation we had recently with Laurie, who's been another interviewee on here as well, is that our businesses are now portable, and it's about shifting the way in we see the way we do business, and services are much better placed online these days than they were even 5 years ago now. So the ability to be able to pick up and go, actually, I'm going to go to Goa, I'm going to go to Spain, I'm going to go to Morocco, I don't care, insert any other incredible place that's not the UK. It is doable, but it's about rethinking who you're speaking to. And I imagine for you as well, much like Laurie was saying, you can fix pain, or say fix it. You can work with your clients in any country, from any country as well. They don't have to be UK-based clients. You could have, you've got your Goa clients, you could have clients in Brazil for all we know. It's the fact that you are now a global business, and it's up to you how much you scale that business, and that's completely in your hands.
Cue explosions. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
So, Alison, I'm really curious. So, you're back in the UK. You are, and we said this before pressing record. That the business you're building back up in the UK for your UK audience here. What do you see happening next for the business? Where would you like to take it next?
Well, at the moment, I've been concentrating on working with people one-to-one, which I really enjoy, and also because it's a little easier to manage if I do suddenly find, either because of family commitments or because of the business in India, that I suddenly have to disappear for a few weeks. It's easier if you're working with people one-to-one to rearrange things. I think very much when you're doing a course for a group, you've really got to commit to being in the same place, in the same time zone for 8 weeks. But what I'd like to be doing is start to doing more group courses. I would like to run some group courses.
Wonderful.
So it's about building that audience. So I've got enough people interested.
Oh, I love that. Well, we know all about building an audience, don't we? Hello, podcast watchers and listeners. Thank you very much. Right, Alison, we're going to wrap up now. We're going to finish with our final question. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
But basically, the question, we like to see this as a bookend to the first one. So if you're going to go back and visit your younger self, choose whichever time you wish, and you're going to say something to them, arm around the shoulder, a little pep talk or whatever, what would you say to your younger self?
Trust yourself. You've got this.
Trust yourself. It's so important, isn't it? You trust yourself, you've got this. Because, we've got young children, 9, 7 and 5. And you can already, you know what, some of the stuff they come back from school and tell us already, you kind of go, you can see how that might play in their mind. So I think, yeah, that's very important.
I think the other thing I would say is it's not that you shouldn't listen to other people or you shouldn't take advice, but you should always be checking in with yourself, with your own heart, your own mind, your own body, about what really feels right for you. Because I do think that if something feels right to you and you're passionate about it, you'll always put the work in.
Do you know what? That resonates so much more than I think you'll ever realise for us, because we all go through it at all aspects in our life, and us, we're in our 40s now. We've sat there in the last few weeks ourselves, haven't we, having that, like that, going back to the fire in the belly thing. You do question things, and when things feel off kilter, a bit off, not quite right, there's usually a really good reason for that. And if it's not feeling right in your tummy, you should be trust that heart, head, all of that. And I think we just get so built up to what other people think you should be doing that actually you know better than anybody, because it's you and your life and your world, your in terms of your business. Do what feels right to you. Is brilliant advice, Alison.
Yeah.
Alison, thank you so much for being with us today. It's been absolutely fascinating, and I can't wait to continue this conversation after the podcast as well, because I could chat to you for
that's always what happens, isn't it?
It always is. I think we've had like 8 episodes out of your 1.5 hour.
Okay.
Right, thanks so much everyone for watching and listening, and we will see you soon. Thank you, Alison. Bye.